I don't know if this is gonna work. Too many bugs. Maybe I can just record this whole video while on the move. It could work. So imagine raw elemental beings that have bound themselves to this reality through forming a connection with a mundane object, a mundane hollow object known as a vessel. Because in my world of Ghostar, elementals and other beings from the chaos can't exist within this world for very long before they're shunted back to the chaos from which they came. But Djinkin that I'll be covering in this video are very, very different. Hello, my name's Gamer Galway. This is the Ugly Goblin. Welcome to the channel, and I hope you enjoy this video where I talk about my world. And only about half a year ago, my players destroyed that entire world while we were playing Dungeons and Dragons and clicked a hard reset on my entire universe.
What's this button do?
And so I'm building everything from scratch, starting with every single species that exists in this world, and they are all called kin, and these are one of them. These Djinkin are essentially replacing Genies, which are super boring, which are, you know, they're humans with a little bit of an elemental flavor. And it's like, ooh, wow, I got like fire hair, but I'm just basically human with fire hair. And I think that's super boring. And, you know, I think in the end of the day, we all want to play something kind of weird, right? Djinkin are raw elemental beings. And these Djinkin come in many forms. You can get fire, smoke, ice, water, air, or lightning Djinkin. And they are all in the vague, kind of abstract, ever-shifting shape of some sort of humanoid. But what makes them special is the sentimental bonds that they form with vessels, things that they connect valuable memories to, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But these vessels, as they acquire more and more of them, these could be, you know, a pair of old gloves, it could be a torn jacket, it could be a spool of ribbon, or maybe even a cracked flower pot. They collect these and add them to their body. And as they do, with each vessel and connection they form, they begin to form a more solidified and refined version of themselves. They start to look more humanoid in nature, and these can come in many different traits, like, you know, they might start developing a face, or hands, or, you know, a more distinguished smile, or a personality, and even a very recognizable laugh. So as they acquire more vessels, their change, the way they change physically, is not just exclusive to the silhouette that they acquire through the motley collection of items all over their body. They themselves, the physical raw elemental energy, begins to refine itself. It begins to look more and more like every other kind of civilized being in Ghostar. Is that one on my head? Frick. Okay, we're turning around. This might be getting too extreme. So Djinkin are probably the most sentimental creature in all of Ghostar. And their first journey, their first steps of becoming this refined individual starts with the very first vessel they form a bond with. This vessel is known as their home vessel, and it contains probably their most precious and most core memory that they own. This vessel is the very first object in their lives that connected them to this world. It's an object that had enough intrigue or personal weight for them in this world that it ended up binding them here forevermore. Imagine this. Imagine an old man, an old alchemist, has this big gateway into the chaos. This is an area of raw magical power. He used this portal to gather ingredients for alchemy. And so now they have a big old window into the chaos where beings from the chaos can watch them work. And for a while, they had a bit of an audience. But over time, this audience got bored seeing them make pretty much the same potions again and again and again. But then there was one fire elemental who was so intrigued by the way they lovingly stoked the fire under their cauldron and the way they chose their very specific ingredients. They were so meticulous about their work, and they fell in love with how much care and love and affection almost that they put into the alchemy, into the potion brewing. And so they watched them for perhaps years. And then one day, after getting to know this alchemist pretty well, the old man reached into the chaos as they usually do to get their usual ingredients, and this fire elemental handed the ingredient back to them. And as the old man took it, brought them with them through the portal to get a look at who gave them this ingredient, who knew exactly what they needed in that moment. And from there, a very natural bond relationship kind of formed as these two unconventional individuals, an old man and a fire elemental, began to live together as master and student. And the alchemist designed runes and everything, drew runes on the elemental to help bind them in this reality. And they spent years together studying alchemy. But eventually, because all Djinkin, all elementals, are essentially ageless, they don't die with age, eventually that old man passed away. And when he did, the runes, the magical runes that bound that fire elemental to this reality, faded with the old man's magic. And so that elemental, who the old man called Hearth, began to be pulled away back to the chaos. And as they did, as they felt themselves falling back to the chaos, they grabbed hold of the cauldron that they worked with their master tirelessly making potions on again and again. This is the one thing, this is the first item they saw in this world that their master was working on and working with. They grabbed hold of it, this loving object, as they were pulled away into the chaos. In that moment, Hearth, our fire elemental, bound themselves to this world and became a Djinkin. And so Hearth took that cauldron with them, took it everywhere they went, mounted it on their head, and lived the first few years of their life, the rest of their lives, as a Djinkin. They're in my hair. So as Djinkin go on to live their lives and collect more and more vessels, more and more memories in the world of KICKSTARTER, it is possible that eventually their home vessel might change. So let's go back to Hearth. Maybe one day Hearth falls in love. Let me put you over here actually, because I think the bugs have calmed down just for a moment. But let's say one day Hearth falls in love, and sadly, tragically, eventually they outlive their partner. That partner passes away, and so Hearth takes the tough leather gloves that their partner always used to wear when they were a blacksmith and puts them on, and these gloves now hold an even stronger memory than the cracked pot they have on their head does, as they love this person for decades. And so these gloves now become their new home vessel. I think it was super sweet. I think that's super cute. And typically, you can figure out the rough age of a Djinkin by observing, well, for one, how many vessels they actually have on them, how many memories they wear, but also you may get a very good understanding of how old a Djinkin would be by just having a look at their home vessel and how old that home vessel is, which in this case is not super accurate for our boy Hearth, who now wears the old leather gloves of their previous husband. So, but the old cracked pot on their body would definitely be old and worn, covered in like cracks, and probably doesn't, that quality of pot making, maybe, or cauldron making doesn't even exist anymore, but you might be able to date it back, you know, several hundred years. But now, due to their ageless nature, it's kind of inevitable that eventually many Djinkin will become super powerful with time. With enough time, they will learn super powerful and ancient magics such as the wish spell. And so because of this, many mages or desperate individuals will begin hunting down Djinkin, these very powerful ones, and look to ways to bind them into their own vessels, and thus genies are born. So genies are Djinkin who grew so powerful that they attracted the power of unwanted wizards who carved runes or magical spells into their home vessel and bound them within it, forcing them to grant the wish to anyone who would speak the magical word that bound them. 3 wishes is what every genie must grant whoever finds their home and speaks their magical words. And I think in most cases, this magical word is the Djinkin's original true name. And if I ever found a genie and I had 3 wishes, I think my first would maybe to ask you to like and subscribe just for the raw survival I've been through so far. I'm literally surrounded by mosquitoes, oh my god. Just for this endurance test alone, please like this video. The more likes I get, the more likely I am to survive. But also, my second wish would be that you check out my new Kickstarter that is going to be going live very, very soon. You can find it in the links in the description below. And all the funding for this Kickstarter, everything we earn, is going to go towards my fiancé and I's wedding. This is my very first Kickstarter, and it's on a topic very, very dear to me. It's on cooking in Dungeons and Dragons. There are so many things here. There's all these rules and mechanics to eat any monster you like in Dungeons and Dragons, as well as being filled with tons of unique ingredients and regional recipes, as well as many, many other tips for and mechanics for survival, like foraging, hunting, fishing, all of that. It's going to be packed with basically everything that I love. I used to want to be a chef when I was younger. Oh my god, look at that. I don't know if that's picking up on the camera. I just grabbed a bunch of bloody raw, oh my god, look at my back. But yeah, this is gonna be our very first Kickstarter. I'm very excited. We've done all the artwork ourselves. There's no AI. We've drawn everything, my fiance and I, and I'm just so excited to release it. So do check that out. And also, while I have you, thank you so much to my patrons who make this job possible, genuinely. Thank you to Tom, WDW. Thank you to Bridge on the Lake, my hero goblins, and thank you to all my Giga Chads, my fancy goblins, and my pajama goblins. You're incredible. Yeah, I don't know where I am anymore. Okay, we've managed to escape, but still there are bugs. So, ooh, good echo. When you eventually make your Djinkin in Dungeons and Dragons or Daggerheart or whatever TTRPG that you decide to make, you're going to have to decide 2 things to start. You're going to decide what kind of raw elemental energy you're going to be made out of, but also what mundane object is going to be your home vessel. Now, based on the element that you choose, that's going to determine essentially what vessels you can connect to. And what I mean by that is more volatile Djinkins. Djinkins made out of a more unstable element or destructive element like fire or water or electricity that, you know, erode or burn or even completely disintegrate many objects that they come in contact with over time, at least. Those elements, those types of Djinkin tend to lean towards hardier vessels that can endure their natural elements, affinity to burn, erode, and disintegrate. So our boy Hearth, for example, may be typically attracted to vessels such as clay pots or things made of stone or metal, whereas maybe a lightning Djinkin may lean towards electronics or other things that are made of metal and conduct electricity kind of nicely. So like a TV or copper wiring or maybe an entire suit of metal armor. But then more stable elemental Djinkin such as ice, smoke, or air, they will typically lean towards lighter vessels that won't encumber them in their long lives in Ghostar. But a concept I really love the idea of is, imagine an ice Djinkin who collects paintings and tapestries. Now, with vessels, I like that the only deciding factor of like what makes a vessel is they are something that can contain something. So books, paintings, tapestries, all that kind of thing, they are all free game for Djinkin to take. And so imagine an ice Djinkin, covered in paintings and tapestries, and their home vessel is this really old painting. And when they recede inside of it, which is an ability that Djinkin have, it's called home vessel, which allows them to retreat inside of their vessel and move around it a bit. And once they're inside, it's essentially a giant home that only gets grander and larger as the Djinkin grow in power. And so, you know, Djinkin, who are really ancient and powerful, may have an entire palace inside, whereas a Djinkin who is just starting off, it may be just a little cave or a hovel, or just kind of look like the interiors of the vessel that they're connected to. So in Hearth's case, it might just be a big pot. But imagine if this ice elemental receded inside of their vessel, and from the outside, you can see them moving around within the painting itself. I just think that's so cool. I just love the endless possibilities that you have with these Djinkin. I just think they're so cool, and I think also the possibility not only for character design, but also for NPCs is really interesting. So imagine this is my pitch. Imagine an air Djinkin who looks like a balloon of a man who's been around for many, many years, maybe several hundred years. And their home vessel is a carriage. And they go around in this carriage as a merchant, selling to other adventurers their vessels. They are literally so old and have so many vessels, so many memories, that they can't keep track of anymore. They can't remember anymore, so they sell off the ones they don't need. And they sell them, they base the price off of not their monetary value, but the personal value that these vessels have to them. And so you might find within their wares a +3 flame sword that can do a bazillion damage or whatever, 2d6 extra damage or whatever, and the players find that, and it only costs maybe 500 gold. But then a simple pocket watch that only tells the time might be worth 100,000 gold. And so now you've got players who are paranoid, who probably think that the super mega powerful sword is a fake, but maybe the pocket watch has the abilities to completely alter and stop time. And I love that. I love a good merchant, and I just love this concept. And so I'm super curious. Would you add these Djinkin to your world? Would you play as a Djinkin in one of your D&D or in your Daggerheart game? DMs, would you add these creatures to your world? Like for me, in my world of KICKSTARTER, it's really interesting because it's intrinsically connected to our own world of Earth. So you've got things like elves digging up cell phones in their backyard, and you've got, you know, museums that have PS2 games on display as like ancient artifacts. And so the concept of finding a TV or a vending machine out in the wild, oh my god, imagine Lightning Djinkin who has a vending machine as their main body, and they walk around as just a walking vending machine. Any Pokemon fans, this is very much a Rotom vibe here, that you just can possess electrical items. But yeah, in KICKSTARTER, the concept of finding an old beat up TV isn't too unusual, and so you could have a TV head kind of Djinkin walking around, all these kind of things. Like, the possibilities for them are truly endless, and I love designing kin. Because I'm an artist myself, I love designing kin that have a lot of customization to them, a lot of creative potential. So that's my main aim for all of these. If you want to check it out as well, I made stats for them and everything else in the link in the description below if you want to add them to D&D. I've primarily made them for D&D. I haven't looked into Daggerheart too much yet, so I don't really know how to mechanically turn them into a kin for Daggerheart. But let me know how you might do that. And let me know your character designs for you, what kind of Djinkin you would make. I'm super curious. I try to answer pretty much every single comment I ever get in any of my videos, so don't be shy to comment, to chat below with me about your own worlds, your own kind of ideas. I'm more than happy to hang out with you there in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, a big thing you can do to help me out is to just share it around. You know, players, share this with your DM, ask them if they might add it to your games for DMs. Share it around with your players, you know, see if they want to play one of these. Wait, actually, we're not gone yet, because I said I released a post there just before filming this video asking you to all submit questions that you would like to have answered at the end of my videos. And I'm going to try to do this a little more often. So also in the comments below, if you want a question answered in my next video, live at the end of my next video, pop them in the chat and we'll have a chat. We'll try to answer them as best I can. So the first one was, how comfortable am I with my content being translated into Russian? Go for it. I say that's freaking cool. Hell yeah. We have from Simone. You asked, what is your favorite food to cook and eat, and can you make a residing for witches? A residing for witches? I don't know what the last part means. My favorite food to eat is anything wholesome, I think, usually. I do like making like stews or like a cottage pie. I also, I've got a big kind of base in like Italian cuisine, French cuisine, and a lot of Japanese cooking, because I spent a long time living in Japan and cooking there. So my main kind of style of cooking is like a fusion of like Japanese and Italian. Whatever comes to mind when you think of that, that's kind of typically what I like to cook. And then we also have one other question here. Let's see, from Ben Law. Hello, Ben Law. Your question is, how would you handle the sub-races born of the borders of the elemental plane, like the older editions had lava, marsh, etc.? Or how would you consider the residual energy of shadow planes and Feywild to create elementals too? That's an awesome question and very relevant for this video. So what I would say is choose a damage type, because all these elements are based off a damage type. So if you want to go shadowy kind of vibes, go with necrotic. If you want to go with Fey, that's an interesting one. I think for Fey, you could go Radiant, or you could go Force, or even Thunder, depending on the kind of spiritual vibes. But I imagine Fey being very glittery, prismatic, and everything else, you could go super interesting with that. You could go as weird as you want, or even just making them out of mushrooms. And then for the likes of shadowy stuff, you know, physically, they would just look like a walking shadow. I'm trying to think of a strange one, like Marsh could be Poison. Which could be very interesting. Poison kind of damage associated with them. It's very simple, to be fair. In the document I've included to make these things very customizable, I've listed about 6 kind of core elemental kind of features you could go with water, ice, fire, smoke, lightning, and air. But you can very easily go earth, and they're associated with bludgeoning damage and things like that. So have fun with it, play around with it. You just pick a damage type and clip it on to the element that you're running. I haven't made it too complicated besides that. I like to make things quite clean, even though there's quite a few features in this kin compared to my other kin. It should typically, mosquito, it should typically be pretty easy to put something together. But best of luck, and thank you so much for watching, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy playing whatever games you go off and play this evening. And if you want to learn more about KICKSTARTER or any other kin that I've made, check out one of these videos. It's never over here. I usually flip the screen. I think it's over here, the video. Click it now. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Goodbye.